What's going on, guys? We're back again with another Ultra Rumble video, and this time we're talking about the characters who've had significant data removed at the start of the season. So a lot of their information was removed from the files, and what that could potentially mean. I know some people are under the impression that means these characters were canceled, and other people are like, hey, well, I guess they just had a shift in direction. So we'll get into the specifics of what that could potentially mean. I'll support all of this with information shared by the data miners in terms of the exact amount of files that were present in the game files prior to this season and beyond. And I have a theory about where this is all going, so I'll share that. So stick around to the end for that. But if you enjoy the video, as always, make sure you guys drop a like to support. You guys have been great with supporting the channel as of late, so I definitely appreciate it. But again, with all that said, let's jump into today's video. So as you can see, Jiro was someone who was pretty controversial at the start of the season, because going into the season, a lot of people were under the impression that she would be one of the characters revealed for the anniversary season because she had the most data in the registry bin in the files, and alongside Tokiyami. And a lot of people were excited for those characters specifically. A lot of players were really looking forward to them. They've been wanting them to be in the game since the beginning. Most fans of My Hero Academia want the Class 1A students specifically included in the game. So it's always a big countdown to when we'll get more 1A students, we'll get more villains. Everybody wants all of the characters in the game ultimately, but these characters specifically, again, we had small indications that they could possibly be the characters added for this season, although none of that information was rooted in anything concrete. That was just a best estimation based on the visible data we had at the time, and I'll show you guys what that means. So on this chart of information, this all comes from season 10. So at the time of season 10, this information was relevant for characters in the game at that time. So if you look down here for character 104, Monoma, this was prior to his release. He didn't come until season 11. In season 10, Monoma had significantly more data than all the other characters who were unreleased at the time. Significantly. Like, the next closest person was Tamaki, and he had 1,961 files in the game at that time, which was a little bit down from season 9. But as you can see, like, the jump between Monoma and Tamaki is very significant. So signs like this was what data miners were going by when they were predicting which characters were coming in the upcoming season. And prior to this season, they've always been right, because again, the signs were glaring. So you see the developers were putting in a ton of resources and work into this character specifically, and they would see other signs as well. So you would see voice lines being added, you would see animation data being updated, things like that. So it's not just wild guessing or biased predictions based on who we want in the game or anything like that. They do their due diligence and they report what they find, and they never, if you're following a credible data miner, they're definitely not telling you anything in absolutes, because they know things can change behind the scenes. They know the developers have their own internal roadmaps and game plans for what they want added to the game, or when they want to release things, or how they want to market things. So they can only give insight into what they're able to see behind the scenes. So just to clear that up for you guys. But again, this information all comes from season 10. And at season 10, you saw information for characters like Midnight, for Hood, who he didn't have much, but there was some there. You have some for Sero. And again, they've been tracking this data since the beginning of the game. So season 1, you can see what these characters had visible, and all the way up until season 10 at that time. And then, so again, you see characters like Jiro, who's at the top. You have over 1,000 files in the data. You have over 1,000 for Tokiyami. Not Muscular. Stain, he had significant data around that time. Tamaki, Mina had some data, and then you have Mineta. But at the time of season 10, before they did a purge in season 11, Monoma was clearly going to be the next character. Tamaki, was hinted at being the next character, following Monoma because of the amount of data he had, and then from there, Stain and Mineta had the most data, and then Jiro and Tokiyami weren't far behind those two. So you can kind of see a internal roadmap glimpse a little bit, just based on that information visible at the time. And then going into season 12, following the purge of data that we got in season 11, this is the information that was visible coming out of that. So going into season 12, as you can see, Jiro's amount of data decreased significantly. She went from over 1,000 to just 81, files. And, the same for Tokiyami. He dropped down to 73. Stain went from having the most at that time of these characters listed to having just 71 files. So clearly, the developers, wanted to stop kind of showing their hand a little bit in terms of what would be coming, because again, the data miners have been accurately predicting what was coming next and sharing that information. And again, while it is never definitive, it's never concrete until it's official, there were clear signs. But if you notice, characters like Sero, he never had any information re-added in season 12. So all of his data was completely wiped. Hood, he had his data completely wiped. And then this is again season 12, which back in season 11 they found those characters. You got Lady Nagant, you have Final War Deku, and then you have character 200, which we know now is Armored All Might, and character 201, which we know now is Young All for One. So again, the data miners were aware of these characters at that time, and they did have more information outside of the registry bin. But again, just going strictly by the information that was present in the registry bin, these were the characters with the most. So Jiro and Tokiyami here at the top, and that's what the prediction of Jiro and Tokiyami was based on solely. So that's, again, this isn't a lot of information. And clearly, again, if you go back to season 10, you had characters with more data, present than them at that time. So you had Stain with more, you had Mineta with more information than them at that time. So clearly something changed behind the scenes, and I told you guys the developers could definitely pull a fast one, because this just doesn't scream definitive, hey, yeah, these are the characters they're working on. So something definitely changed, and as we saw, we got One for All Deku and Young Prime All for One this season. But this is the information we have available as of the start of season 13. So again, season 13 saw Jiro lose a lot more data than she did in season 12. So she came into season 12 with 81 files present, and then in season 13 that dropped down to 2. Tokiyami went from 73 down to 29. Stain, he dropped down to 2. And again, the list goes on and on. So Mina, Mineta, all of these characters, Gentle still has some data in there, but again, you see a decrease. May had a significant decrease. Labraba got a decrease. Mirko is still in there. Mirko, she's relatively around the same. And again, we'll talk about that a little later in the video. But again, Sero and Hood, still zero. So externally, that can look like, all right, well, these people have been pulled. Those characters have been pulled from the pipeline. They're no longer being developed, and these new characters will be what's coming next. So we're not doing these characters anymore, and I don't believe that to be the case. And again, I'll share why that is. But again, this is where those predictions come from, based on the visible information. But there has been a shift in terms of where reliable information comes from in terms of making those predictions. So data miners no longer go by the registry bin, because clearly the developers found, they understand that that's where those predictions are able to be made. So they're not showing their hand by putting a ton of information in those files anymore. So where you have to find that information now is in a different place. And again, The data miners have adjusted, but again, this is just the old way of predicting what was going on. So again, going back to season 10 with Monema's data and so forth, that just was the most reliable way of getting that information. But again, you have big characters, in terms of popularity, and they're being pushed to the forefront. So a new version of Deku, obviously that would be a big fan favorite, and we've seen a significant increase in the player numbers on Steam. That's the only version of the active players that we can actively see, because you can't see what's going on for PlayStation and Xbox, but for Steam, those numbers jumped up from 4,000 to 6,000 and 7,000 at the start of this season. So again, that's very significant for a game heading into its second year anniversary. And again, they have a new producer in charge, and they clearly have a different way of going about things than what we've seen in the past. We've been seeing more content be cranked out. We've seen the special license get buffed. We've seen the pro license get buffed and things like that. So they definitely want to be more attractive to new players while also engaging for veteran players. So they're definitely taking a different approach to things. But again, characters like Mina and Mineta, I feel like there is a player base for those characters, and obviously they're not going to be as popular or sell as well as someone like Mirko or Lady Nagant, but there are people, I would say a significant amount of players who are actively waiting for those characters specifically and looking for those characters to be added to the game, as well as Midnight, another pro hero, another female character. There's a plethora of reasons to add characters like this in the game, but I don't believe the developers believe that adding them as the main event for, or the main attraction for a season, I think they're losing faith in that potentially being the best way to handle introducing those characters into the game. And again, time will tell on that, but lately we've seen them going with characters who have a bit of chemistry or synergy to their release. So Monema being released alongside a new skill set for Kendo, with All Might having a new skill set thrown in the middle, just because again, All Might is one of the most popular characters. He's definitely going to bring a bit of hype and appeal to it, and again, you're giving players a new way to play with a favorite character. And then you follow that up with the release of Tamaki, who is again another character players desperately wanted in the game, just to complete the big three, because you already have Mirio and Nejire, and then you add in a new skill set for Mirio in the same season, while also adding in a new skill set for Endeavor, who is again one of the more popular characters. So they've definitely been ramping up and going with bigger releases, bigger names and things like that. And again, this could be a short-term plan. This just could be a way to just get a burst of new players and new interest in the game, for the next few seasons. Or this again could be a long-term plan, which I believe is what they're implementing going forward. But characters like Sero and Hood, they're obviously going to be a part of the new game that's coming out for My Hero All's Justice. These are their models from that game specifically, but as I told you guys, ByKing is the studio behind both games. So ByKing is actively developing My Hero's All's Justice while continuing support and development for My Hero Ultra Rumble. And these models are all what they use for both games. So obviously they have a bit of a different engine over there for All's Justice, so they look a little different, little more polished and things like that. But all these models can be shared between both projects. So while he gets a chance to shine over there in that game, that saves them work on the back end in Ultra Rumble when they're ready to release or add him over here. And the same goes for Hood and the rest of these characters. These assets aren't going to just go to waste. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're not commissioning all of this just to be tossed out like, we don't want to do that anymore. And that's not how development works, unless outside forces force them to end development on the game before they can actualize those plans. But if the game is doing well, as you can see it is, there's no reason to abandon, you know, plans for characters like that. And again, going back to Jiro, this character has had animations in the files since the beginning. Like, I don't know if the original plan was to have her be a part of the base roster for the game, but all of this is old. None of this is these aren't new files they've just added to the game or anything like that. She's been a part of the plan since the beginning. I believe it's just come down to which characters would do the best in terms of, you know, introducing players to the game, and she probably just didn't make the cut for that. And then, you know, in terms of figuring out a release pipeline for characters, you wanted to streamline more popular characters ahead of her, so she's just kind of getting caught between the lines, I guess. But she's clearly a part of their plans. Like, you can see all of this information, all of these designs and everything. Like, all of this stuff is already there, and a lot of this stuff already came from My Heroes 1's Justice 2. So again, I don't see them abandoning or getting rid of all of this work for essentially no reason, because again, this is a live service game. They're going into their, you know, we're heading into year 3 at this point, and they have no reason to slow down. As you can see, they're actually speeding things up. We've just got, you know, two seasons back to back of double skill sets alongside new characters, and then this season we're getting you know, 2 characters and 1 skill set. So we could see either one of those scenarios happen in season 14 in the year. And again, either one of those scenarios could be the new standard going forward. So maybe they're up in their release schedule to increase into 2 characters a season, or 2, you know, skill sets and a new character until anniversaries, you know, swing around where we do double characters. You genuinely won't know until we get there. But, you know, they clearly are enjoying success behind the scenes in terms of how the game is performing. And again, they have a rare opportunity to take advantage of certain things, because you have half of your studio developing another game that works well along with your game. So you have assets that you can pull without having to outsource, you know, that work to a third party company or anything like that. They can do all of that in-house. They can share all of that in-house, and it works. So they were able to catch up with the anime a little bit, you know, this season, right before the new episodes start tomorrow. So you have, you know, One for All Deku in My Hero Ultra Rumble right before the new season starts. You got Prime All for One coming later this month. So again, when players are enjoying new episodes of that show, or new fans of that show are, you know, finding out about this game, you have a place for them to come and, you know, just kind of take part in reenacting some of those fantasies they have, or, you know, just enjoying their favorite characters with the promise of seeing more of their favorite characters come in the future. So again, I don't see any of this just simply going away or going to waste. And again, you have bigger names in the pipeline. So again, if you're given an option between Lady Nagant and someone like Jiro or Mina or Mineta, while I know specific people may want Mina or Jiro more players are going to be inclined to go with Lady Nagant, even though I think she's going to break this game. Like, she's probably going to be one of the most annoying people to fight in this game, but I'm all for people having their favorites added to the game, and I'm looking forward to her being added. And again, this is her design from My Heroes All's Justice, and this is what was found in the files, you know, back in season 12, I believe, when they figured out her skeleton. So they layered Deku's model over her skeleton, and this is what you get. So she's clearly in the immediate pipeline. Again, theory is that she could possibly show up as soon as season 14 alongside Armored All Might, but you know, we've never seen them do 2 seasons of double character releases back to back, so I would take that with a grain of salt. But she is, you know, clearly a part of their immediate plans. But you also have another heavy hitter in the pipeline with Mirko. You know, she's a big part of the Final War arc. She's been, players have been wanting her in these games for years. You never got her in One's Justice 2. She's making her debut in All's Justice 3. And again, if you can deliver her in Ultra Rumble not long after that, you're setting your game up for success. You have to take those wins when you can, is what I'm saying. So it's like, I know it's disappointing to people who have been waiting so long for characters like Jiro, and Mina and Mineta and Midnight, but I understand the position that the developers in. They're prioritizing, what gets the most, eyes on their game, what gets the most players giving their game a chance, because those players are potential customers who may buy crystal bundles or, roll tickets, whatever. So all of that counts. And, if you want your game to succeed, you have to make, smart decisions around things like that. But you also do want to serve, those players who want, some of the less popular characters, but, significant, to the story or to those players specifically. And again, characters like Best Genius, they're clearly going to be in the pipeline. They're clearly, going to get around to getting these characters into the game because they know players want them, and they have the assets to do that. They have the assets already in place to accomplish and deliver that. But this is where I believe characters like Jiro, Mina, Mineta, possibly Sero, and, a couple villains like Hood or somebody, Muscular, I feel like this is the place for those characters. And we've seen them update the special license this season by giving us new tiers to level up to. So you got a couple new costumes, you got a couple new ticket rewards. They threw some nameplates on there, and this is what you do. So if they can, if they're doing well enough financially to where they can add those characters to a special license update for free, that would be massive. I feel like that would probably increase the amount of players in the game significantly, just like we saw this season with the addition of One for All Deku. But even if they have to, charge a bit for it, I feel like, there's a fair price point they can find that wouldn't alienate most players who are, you're working on limited incomes, or you're just trying to do what you can free to play. But if they can find a way to add those characters to a special license update for free, that would be massive. Like that would be a game changer. So giving players the chance to just grind the game and unlock some of their favorite characters free of charge, that would be massive. But I do believe they're going to release, a couple of those characters in a bundle release, just to get them on there to kind of fast track them to the game, while also not taking away from having other characters shine. So you can still have your bigger releases. Like Tokiyami, I don't feel like would make it on something like that. I feel like he's way too popular to just get tossed in here for free. So he can definitely carry a season as the release character. Mirko, Stain, people like that, Gentle Criminal. I feel like all of those will be, major character releases for a season. But some of the lesser named characters, I think putting them on a special license would probably be the best place for them to go. And I believe this new producer has that kind of vision. Like they've been executing at a high level. They've been putting tickets in the right places. They've been giving players more opportunities to roll for characters. The new I forgot what the roads, the hot picks roll for the season, where you get a free ticket every week, every reset, and you get a chance to roll for multiple characters. You can get skill sets. I just rolled Tech Mirio again with my free ticket the other day. I know people who have gotten Assault Endeavor. That you can get some of the biggest characters in the game currently 100% for free, in addition to other stuff. It's a 10 roll, so you can get new costumes, new voice lines, all of that stuff. But you can get major releases for free during this anniversary, and you will get a ticket every week for the duration of this season to get those kind of characters. So they understand the value in giving players, you know, giving back to players who have been sticking around with the game or who are just coming into the game. And, you know, they're still figuring some things out. It's definitely not perfect. You know, the game has balancing issues, and they definitely have to figure out something with free character tickets, because we haven't had a character added to the free character ticket roll since I think Mirio was the last character who made it in. Like, he just squeezed by. Overall, like, I don't think they remember they actually put that character in the game. That brother hasn't gotten any costumes or anything like that. He's had no love shown to him, and he can only be attained by rolling. So you would either have to use exchange points to get him, or get lucky and roll him while you're trying to roll for somebody else. Those are the only ways you can get certain characters, and that's something I think they have to address and figure out at some point. But again, they're juggling a lot behind the scenes. They got a lot of spinning plates they're trying to keep going back there, and I understand that. You know, business is hard, but you are doing well. They're doing a lot better than what a lot of people predicted they would be doing around this time. And it's just about figuring that kind of stuff out. And again, putting characters like Jiro, Mineta, May, Mina, Midnight, you know, Hood or Sero, if you can find a place like this for those characters, that would be a huge win for this game going forward. But as always, I want to know what you guys are thinking down below. Do you think this is the best place for them? Do you think they're canceled? Do you think they'll figure something else out for them? Let me know what you're thinking down below. And if you enjoyed the video, as always, you know, drop a like. It definitely helps support the channel, and subscribe to get more content like this. I have to work this weekend, so I'll try to get some gameplay out for you guys going into the weekend. And maybe I'll try something new this Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. But again, I appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far into the video, this is one of my longest videos so far of me just, you know, breaking down information and talking. So again, show some love if you can, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.